Alright, this is lesson 25 for 8th grade, and we're going to be reviewing on multiplying and dividing decimal numbers. Just like yesterday, we reviewed on adding and subtracting decimal numbers. And remember, yesterday we focused on lining up the decimal point. Today we've got a couple other rules when we multiply and divide. So we're going to review those today. Alright. So when we multiply decimal numbers with pencil and paper, we do not need to align the decimal points. So that's different from yesterday. We did need to align when adding or subtracting. Instead, we multiply to find the product and then count all the decimal places in the factors to locate the proper position for the decimal point in the product. So, and it says here, decimal places are places to the right of the decimal. Okay, so the best thing to do is actually go through some of these. So we're going to look at 8 here. And I'm going to do 0.12 times 0.3. Let's go 0.3. Alright, so we're going to multiply it normally. 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 times 1 is 3. Now, here's how we figure out how many decimal places we're going to move. To get to this side, we go 2 spots, and to get to this side with this one, we go 1 spot. So a total of 3 spots that we have to move to get back to where the decimal would be if it were a whole number. So 3 spots this way means we're going to go 1, 2, 3 this way. Your decimal point will go here, and then we fill this one with a 0. So this should be 0 or 0.036. If you want to add a 0 there too, you can. Alright, so you have to count how many spaces you move your decimal point in order to figure out where it will be afterwards. Sorry, I don't want to lose my page here. Alright, so 3 spots to the left there. Alright, now for B, 1.5 to the second power, or 1.5 squared, that means 1.5 times 1.5. Multiply whatever you have in here twice. Alright, 1.5, 1.5. Alright. Now I know a lot of you like to use the lattice method. That's fine with me. I myself was not brought up to learn that. So you want to make sure that you understand your lattice method. Probably show me, what you're doing. That would be good, because I'm not all too familiar with it. But if you want to try your lattice method and see if you get the same answers, I think that'd be a good idea. If not, we'll talk about it and we'll see what we can figure out. Alright, 5 times 5 is 25. Here you are 2. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 2, 7. Have to add a 0 since we moved over a spot or down. And 1 times 5 and 1 times 1. Add. So we got 5 plus 0. 7 plus 5 is 12. Here you 1, 2. Alright, now we have 1 space, 2 spaces, 2 total spaces. So we're going to go 1, 2, and we should get 2.25 for that one. Alright, now for C, you could go ahead and do that the long way, but I'm going to say that you can use a shortcut for that, because whenever we multiply by a power of 10, we're just going to move the decimal over however many spots, basically. Well, here, let's say this a little better. You're going to move your decimal spot to the right with how many zeros there are. So for instance, we're multiplying by 10. We're going to move our decimal point 1 spot over because 10 has 1 0. So when you multiply by powers of 10, it's moving your decimal spot to the right, and it all depends on how many zeros are in your number. So if this was times 100, we would move it over 2 spots because there were 2 zeros. But it's only by 10, so we're just going to say, okay, it's going to go right there, and we get 42.5. So I would use that shortcut whenever you can. You can do it the long way if you forget, but I like using shortcuts, and I'm sure you do too. So there's one that you can use. Okay. Moving on. Okay, so those are some multiplying examples. Now we look at dividing. It says here, when dividing with decimals, there are two scenarios. We either have a divisor that is a whole number, or we have a divisor that is a decimal. So here's a whole number divisor, here's a decimal divisor. We're going to talk about both ways to do that. So first of all here, 0.48 divided by 8. So this goes on the outside. This stays on the inside. Sorry. 0.48. Alright. It's very important that we keep our decimal where it needs to be. So 8 goes into 0 times. And bring your decimal up. 8 goes into 4 0 times. But 8 goes into 48 6 times. So 6 times 8 is 48. Subtract, you get 0. So, answer to this one would be 0.06 or 6/100. Alright, so now we're going to do 4.8 divided by 5. 5 goes on the outside, that's your divisor. 4.8. Alright, 5 goes into 4 0 times. Bring your decimal up. 5 goes into 48 9 times. So 9 times 5 is 45. Subtract, you get 3. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to add a 0. Add a 0 there. Now, we drop this down. And 5 goes into 30 6 times. And we get 30, we'll subtract, and we get 0. So the answer to this one, 0.96. Or 96/100. Alright. Letter C. Remember that 100 to the second power means 10, or 100 to the second power. 10 to the second power, or 10 squared, means 10 times 10, which is 100. So this is 4.8 divided by 100. Now remember, our shortcut for multiplying by a power of 10 was to move our decimal to the right, however many zeros we had. Now we're dividing. So our shortcut is to move the decimal spot to the left with how many zeros there are. So there are 2 zeros in 100, and we're dividing, so we're going to move it this way this time. And whatever, when we don't have a number here, we fill it with a 0. So we're going to have 0. Oh, here, let's do this. So our decimal would go here, 0.048, and I like to add the 0 out in front there. That would be our answer for that one. So we just moved that guy right there, filled in with zeros where we needed to. You can do that the long way too if you wanted to. It would have been 4.8 divided by 100. Could have done it that way if you wanted, but we'll use shortcuts whenever we can. So dividing by a power of 10, you move it to the left with how many zeros you have. If you multiply by a power of 10, move to the right with how many zeros you have. Check my time quick. We're doing fine. Alright. Now, this would be, or these would be some examples when we have, when we're dividing by a decimal number. So before, in these ones, we were dividing by whole numbers. Now we're going to be dividing by decimal numbers. Oops. And we have this long thing here. I'll let you read that if you want to. But basically, what we're going to do is, if we have, let's say, 0.42 divided by 0.6. So that would look like this. You can see that what they did here is they multiplied this whole thing by 10 over 10, or technically just 1. But remember, when we multiply by 10, it moves our decimal spot over 1 spot to the right. So it moves this over here and this over here, and we get 4.2 divided by 6. So what we can do right away, if we have it in this form, is just move this over 1 and move this over 1, and you get 6 divided by 4.2 instead. And then you can do it just like we did those last ones. So if we take a look at this, I'm going to raise this one up here. We have 3.6 divided by 0.6. So what I'm going to do is 3.6 divided by 0.6. And we want to get this moved over so that this is a whole number, so we're going to move it 1 spot to the right, and this one 1 spot to the right. So now our new equation is actually 6 and 36. And we know that 36 divided by 6 is just 6. So for letter A, we should get 6 there. Now for B, we have 3 divided by 0.06. So 3 divided by that. Alright, we need this to be a whole number. Now we're going to have to move it 2 spots over. 1, 2, and our decimal is right here. 1, 2. So our new equation would be 6 and 300. So how many times does 6 go into 300? Well, if we think about it, well, let's just do it this way. 6 goes into 35 times. 5 times 6 is 30. Subtract, bring down our 0. 6 goes into there 0 times. So we should get 50 for this one. Alright. So that's how we would divide with decimals, whether we have a whole number or a decimal number as the divisor. If you have a decimal number as the divisor, you turn it into a whole number, but you have to do the same amount of movement with your decimal point inside as you do on the outside. Otherwise, you'll get a weird answer, and it won't be right. So, just make sure you follow those rules, and with the multiplying with decimals, make sure you're adding up how many decimal spots you need to move over as well. So a little more complex than adding and subtracting these decimal numbers, but nothing that we can't handle. And if you'd like, this page is in your book. This little table, it gives some good advice. If you want to copy that down or just make a note of it, maybe a little sticky note to say, hey, this is something we might want to know, go ahead. Otherwise, we'll talk about more of this tomorrow. Thank you.